Assemble.
Have you noticed that the Marvel Cinematic Universe seems to be going downhill lately? Today, we're diving into a topic that's hotter than Robert Downey Jr. in his Iron Man suit. That's right, we're talking about the MCU and how it might be just losing all of its superpowers. Let's get into why the MCU might be in need of a superhero of its own. Excelsior. The Marvel Saga, a decline in popularity? Let's talk about the summer of 2019, shall we? It was a time of sunshine, beach trips, and Avengers Endgame. That's right, the movie that broke all records and left audiences in a state of pure euphoria. We're talking about the cinematic event of the millennial generation. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been building up for a whopping 11 years and 22 movies, and Endgame was the cherry on top of the sundae. It was like a big Thanksgiving turkey, and we ate it all up with gusto. The movie was a marvel, pun intended, of epic proportions. It tied up all the loose ends in a messy but still attractive bow, leaving us in awe of what we had witnessed on the big screen. Let's be real, guys. Endgame was the perfect representation of the MCU brand. It had everything from jokes, characters, and stories so ambitious and daring that they changed the way we consume cinema. The movie was like a roller coaster ride, taking us on a journey filled with spectacular thrills and unforgettable moments. But alas, the post-endgame landscape is vastly different. Maybe it's the pandemic that has made us all a bit more cynical and unforgiving, or maybe it's just that Marvel's previously impervious charm is starting to wear off on us. It could even be the studio's considerable pride getting in the way of things. Whatever it is, the fact remains that the MCU is now looking uglier and more tiresome than ever. It's like that delicious meal you had once upon a time, but now it's become tasteless after eating it one too many times. The once massive franchise is now lifeless, soulless, and worst of all, boring. We miss the thrills and surprises that built the Marvel legend. Instead, we're left with constant cameos and increasingly forgettable post-credit scenes meant to set up the next chapter in a seemingly endless book. Is the Marvel Universe losing its magic? The once united fandom has now been split into two camps: the die-hard defenders who will defend Marvel against any and all criticism, and the betrayed fans who feel like they've been left high and dry. By the way, tell us in the comments which side you belong to. Phase 4's offerings have been uneven at best, and it seems like critics have finally had enough of Marvel's mistakes. They used to turn a blind eye, but now they're like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Even the latest Thor movie, Love and Thunder, received mixed reviews. And let's not forget about Ant-Man and the Wasp. While the idea of Kang as the next Thanos-esque threat is intriguing, it feels like a cheap ploy to keep audience invested in a franchise that has lost its spark. Critics seem bored to tears while they're being forced to sit through a never-ending marathon of forgettable films. To be fair, these movies aren't being judged on their individual merits anymore, they're just pieces of a much larger puzzle. And unfortunately, that means that even if one of them is a decent standalone movie, it still might be a failure if it doesn't set up the next chapter in the MCU's never-ending saga. It's like Marvel is trying to cram too much into these movies. The result is a bunch of characters running around with pretty much no clear purpose. We used to love the idea of one continuous story, but now it's starting to feel like a chore. It's like we're stuck in an endless cycle of build-ups with no payoff. Streaming and the MCU's downfall. The recent arrival of Disney Plus and its streaming shows it offers have raised questions about the longevity of the MCU's success. While the idea of delving deeper into the world of the MCU through television shows seemed like a great idea at first, the reality has been somewhat disappointing. The Disney Plus shows are designed to give us a more in-depth look at some of the lesser-known characters in the MCU, but the end result has been lackluster. Instead of fleshing out these characters and exploring their stories in depth, the shows have become more appendages to the larger MCU, existing solely to set up future movies and introduce new characters. It's as if Marvel and Disney have forgotten that television and film are two very different mediums, and what works in one doesn't necessarily work in the other. Take WandaVision for example. The show was marked as a quirky, mind-bending exploration of the grief and trauma that Wanda Maximoff had experienced through her time in the MCU. However, the show quickly devolved into a convoluted mess that served mainly to introduce two new characters and set up future movies. The same can be said for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was marketed as a deep dive into the psyche of Sam Wilson as he grappled with the legacy of Captain America. Instead, the show was a convoluted mess of political intrigue and action scenes that existed solely to set up Sam's future as the new Captain America. The problem with these shows is that they're too beholden to the larger MCU. Instead of existing as a self-contained story that can be enjoyed on their own merits, they are mere cogs in a larger machine that is the MCU. Marvel and Disney need to focus on creating compelling stories that stand on their own. To make matters worse, the shows are far too long for what they are. 8 hours is a lot of time to invest in a story, and when the payoff is a mere 20-second post-credit scene, it feels like a waste of time. Marvel and Disney should have realized that just because they had success with 2.5-hour films doesn't mean they can replicate that success on the small screen. Psst, hey Marvel, hey listen, we love you, but please, stop trying to cut corners and replicate your big screen success on the small screen without putting in the work or creating content suited for this medium. Cool, we got it? Awesome. In short, don't become the DCEU. Please, we won't be able to handle it. Wake up before you lose all of your audience. While the MCU is still bringing in top-notch directors, it seems like their creative visions are being squashed by the all-powerful studio. And don't get us started on the humor. It's like they're trying way too hard to make us laugh. We get it, Marvel, you're funny, but can we please have some substance too? It's like the MCU is relying on its brand name to carry them through, without putting in the effort it really needs. And with each new release, fans are starting to feel more and more disenchanted. We used to be the happiest fandom on the internet, but now we're just bitter and angry. Of course, the MCU is still making money hand over fist, so they must be doing something right. But are audiences really loving these films, or are they just going through the motions? It's becoming harder and harder to get excited about the next MCU projects, and we can't help but wonder if the glory days are behind us. The main issue is the lack of excitement. Are any of us actually excited about the upcoming Marvel projects? Are you looking forward to Echo or Ironheart coming out? Be honest here. And don't even get us started on Hercules. Apparently, he made his debut in Thor: Love and Thunder, but the internet is as silent as Black Bolt. And let's be real, does anyone even remember Black Bolt? It's not just that there's a lack of excitement. The fact of the matter is that we've had way too many disappointing shows. Even Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which had massive hype before its release, was forgotten about only 2 months after its release. Sure, Phase 4 is building towards the Secret War storyline, but let's not kid ourselves. The MCU version will probably be a collection of cameos held together by a sorry excuse for a storyline and some very dirty looking scenes. And while the comic book version was a character study of the rivalry between Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom, we'll be lucky if we get more than a few minutes of that in the movie. It's a sad truth, but the MCU just isn't what it used to be. Let's hope they can turn things around before we lose interest entirely. Do you think that this is the beginning of the end for the MCU? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.